Today, we're going to talk about the misadventures of Stephanie the Bard, also known by friends and family as Stephanie the Bookworm, Stephanie the Perfectionist, Stephanie the Long-Winded, and Stephanie the Awesome. Well, maybe not that last one, so we'll stick with Stephanie the Bard for now. When seeking the class best suited from Dungeons & Dragons, she asked family and gamer friends to help her discover her true class. Almost in unison, each person replied, "Why, Bard, of course." Bard, she thought to herself. That makes sense. Bards, you see, are support characters. They are artists and scholars, hungry for knowledge, whose skills might lead them down many paths, where every day brings new opportunities, adventures, and challenges. Stephanie thought this was rather close to the truth, as bards, well, they're not the strongest or the fastest, like herself. They're also considered to be squishy when compared to frontline fighters. But her intelligence and her insatiable thirst for knowledge, well, that rang quite true, and she's still working on that whole wisdom and charisma piece. Like all characters, Stephanie has acquired and honed, maybe not quite successfully, certain skills. In fact, as a bard, her perform skill of pedantic lecture has become quite legendary. Stephanie has also learned several special abilities, her most impressive being her Dirge of Doom, which inspires a growing sense of dread in her audience. If she uses the word wastewater, tiny house, or off-grid, you must leave the room as quickly as possible, or experience this growing sense of dread for yourself as she regales you in boring and excruciating detail. Luckily, she has an honorable party of fellow adventurers to keep her in check. Together, this party has defeated many a foe and solved many a problems. But, speaking of problems, let us get back to episode 1. The trouble with goblins. So, goblins. Tiny green dudes. They are Stephanie's current leadership challenge. One might say they are much like priorities. One thing to understand about goblins is they multiply very quickly. First, you're just fighting one goblin, then you're fighting 2, then you're juggling 3, 5, 6, 7, 14, 20? But how, you ask, is one supposed to engage with 20 goblins all at once? Well, Stephanie quickly learned that she can't fight 20 goblins at once. In her dashboard, she wrote that when focusing on too many goblins, she has a hard time killing even one pesky goblin. So, she starts practicing saying no and prioritizing the goblins she most wants to kill first. Little by little, 20 goblins becomes 8, then 8 becomes 2, and 2 becomes 1, which she promptly kills in the face. While it's not yet perfected in practice, she now better understands that first and foremost, being honest with herself and others about her priorities, goblin killing or otherwise, is the first step to committing herself to quests and adventures that she can be most passionate about, like goblin killing. For the second episode, Stephanie battles the most challenging monster of all, herself. Some days, in the middle of a quest, she looks in the mirror and doubts herself and her abilities. She sees a different version of herself, one that does not have what it takes to make big changes in the world. She tries to fight these doubts, but they seem bigger and more overwhelming, and almost impossible. But then, in her time of need, she calls for her party, and they engage the baddies and fight off her doubts. As a group, they can do more than Stephanie could by herself. Ultimately, Stephanie has learned that the combined abilities of the team, not just her own knowledge and abilities, have greater impact. And more so if these allies have different perspectives and values, because together, they can kill more baddies in the face. The saga of Stephanie the Bard is to be continued.